All right, we're back on Tallarino and Tuzzolino, and we have our special guest this week. We have Bobby Vernon, who is a high school football coach in Miami, Florida, and also a best-selling author from the book Tackling Dummies.
Yes, sir.
And so Bobby tackles the concussion problem that the NFL is facing right now.
Yep.
I was explaining that I played football in high school. I was on a top high school football program,
right.
And it was I graduated high school in 1983,
okay.
And it was it was big time football.
Sure.
And I remember in a game I played safety and I came up. A guy got through the line, a much bigger guy than me, and I lowered my head and I took him out.
Yep.
And his thigh hit me in the head, and I came up and I was seeing stars. I didn't know where I was. I remember the coaches saw and they were waving me off the field.
Yep.
And I was like, no, I'm okay. And they're like, Tommy, come off the field. I'm like, I'm all right.
Yeah.
I stayed in the game and I played with a concussion. I didn't know where I was for the better part of the game.
Yep.
And nowadays that wouldn't happen. Like, you're a coach nowadays.
Yeah.
If someone gets a concussion, how do you react?
Yeah, we get the kid out immediately because the danger for a second concussion is really, although only maybe less than 100 kids have suffered death from the result of a second concussion, that's 90 too many, because it's so easy to simply remove the kid from play.
Right.
And that's what needs to be done. And so in the book, I recommend, for example, putting objective spotters in the stands. They could be school administrators or even parent leaders to watch for these head injuries, because we operate on the assumption that coaches and trainers can see everything, and they can't.
Well, we see in the NFL, the referees are instructed if they see something to pull a guy off the field.
Yep.
I know that they pulled Cam Newton out of a game earlier,
Yep.
and he was like, "I'm fine," and they were like, "No, you got it." So they pulled guys off the field. When I stayed on the field, I had a couple concussions. I remember when I stayed on the field, like, my stock on the team went up.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was a smaller player.
You're tough.
But
the
coaches thought it was tough,
Yep.
and I'm sure. I think we think of it differently now. Like now we know that all the NFL players are tough.
Yep.
So if they're coming out due to a concussion,
Yep.
I don't think the other players or the coaches are like, that guy's not tough, right?
Well, we can see what happens with CTE, as we mentioned in the previous segment. These problems are serious problems that happen later in life. They don't manifest themselves now. It's a later problem. And as we were talking before, I think we need to distinguish between accidental concussions and intentional ones. I think football sometimes gets a bad rap because we talk about all these concussions. Well, the fact is, we really just need to look at eliminating the intentional ones, and the league has done a great job of, having these targeting penalties.
And the intentional ones are
where you either use your head as a weapon, which is the way I was taught. I graduated high school in '89, so not that far behind you.
Same
and
way.
I'm sure you were taught as well. Yeah. Hey, you got a helmet on your head, use it as a weapon, and we need to move away from that, or targeting an opponent's head,
trying to hurt him.
Exactly.
Okay. And the accidental concussion, which we see a lot too. I think I saw a player tackling someone, and then an opposing player's thigh hit him.
Sure.
It was totally accidental.
The knee to the head, the elbow to the head.
And those accidents are going to happen, just like in soccer or skiing or anything else.
I remember when I was taught how to tackle in Pop Warner and like in middle school, they taught us to put our face mask into the chest. So they taught us the right forms. And I mean, you're still teaching that same way, right?
That's where we do some subtle different things. And in fact, I'm actually in discussions with USA Football right now, because they came up with the Heads Up program, in which they teach kids to keep the head up to prevent neck and spine injuries and to prevent leading with the crown. But we've really promoted a Heads Out tackling program
that's new.
In which we look at rugby players and how they tackle, and they do it without a helmet, and they typically avoid head injuries.
And they still hit hard.
They hit hard.
Yeah.
They also tackle almost 3 times as much in a typical rugby match than in an NFL football game. We get about 89 tackles in an NFL game versus 220 in a rugby match. And they're doing it without helmets. They're avoiding concussions, and so we teach that style of tackling.
Well, this book has created a lot of stir amongst the community, and the Miami Herald did an interview on you.
Yep.
The Miami Dolphins have contacted you. Tell everybody a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, so I began coaching at the current school that I'm at, which is Miami Palmetto High School, 2 years ago. 3 years ago, they were a 2-8 team. We were 5-5 last year. This year, we're 9-2 with a top 10 defense in Dade County. What's even greater, however, although we lost our playoff game, we weren't happy about that. What's even greater is that we had 0 concussions this year on our team. 0 on varsity.
Explain to me
Tell me
head
about
out
performance.
Yep.
Tell me about the performance of the team, and then talk about the head out piece. I like that, the head out thing.
Well,
That's
finish
great.
that. Like, finish the head out thing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what we say is, if you look at traditional form tackling now being taught by USA Football, they sort of teach the double uppercut, right, the head up, but you're typically sort of leading with your head, your face, and the chest, right? We teach tackling coming from a leverage position in which we want to get more of the shoulder into the tackle. We don't want to put the head across, which is what we've been teaching our youth and high school football players for years. Get the head across, and particularly now when you look at the zone read offenses that these teams are running, it's all predicated on the cutback. And once you get the head across, you're susceptible to cutbacks. Right. So we teach, we don't let the ball cross our face, or we don't want it to cross our face. So I would say that the two principal differences in our tackling teaching come down to, one, we spend a lot of time on the approach. I think a lot of missed tackles, poor tackles, and unsafe tackles result from a bad approach. And secondly, we teach it, we drill it without our helmets. Mm-hmm. So we get used to tackling each other just using our shoulders and keeping our head out.
And now they're still wrapping up, because that wrap up was the big thing when we were younger, right? Yeah. Well, it's interesting. We talked earlier in the show about the Cowboys. I think that their defense misses the fewest amount of tackles that I've seen throughout the year. And they do that. I mean, like their big hitter is J.J. Wilcox, the safety, or Barry Church. They both do that head out form, which I didn't know that there was like a definition for it, but they both tackle that way. They wipe you out with their shoulder.
Yeah, well, the Seahawks actually were probably, and Pete Carroll did a great job of promoting this, I think back in like 2013, 2014. They call it hawk tackling. And Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman and these guys, they also embody the shoulder tackle, and they've been doing a great job. And they model the rugby system because it works and it's safer.
Hey, if you're going to keep guys like Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman on the field, that's the way to go, right? So and less penalties.
At what age? Sure. At what age do you think that this? What is the minimum age to play tackle football? From all your research, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we have a Super Pee Wee League in Miami.
Super Pee Wee League.
You can play when you're 3 or 4 years old.
Why?
And we're strapping helmets on kids at very, very young ages.
Super Pee Wee.
But I mean,
that's like heating oven. You're heating
someone that's involved in the foundation of football in our country right now. If you're working with USA Football. Like, what's your feeling on that? Isn't that too young to put a helmet on a kid?
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's funny. So one of the things I argue in the book is I propose middle school. I'm not going to state a specific drop-dead age because I think it varies, depends on the kid. But somewhere around the 12-year mark, middle school, get a couple of years under your belt before high school, I think is the right age of doing it. What I argue in the book is saying, look, the argument about safety has been made, but yet we're still putting our kids in these extreme young ages. So what I argued was, actually, by putting your kid in at such a young age, he's not developing as a football player as he would if he played other forms of football that he can learn techniques like flag football, even football at the park, where you can learn concepts of leverage and pursuit and man coverage versus zone coverage and things that are more complicated in nature. When kids get helmets on their head, they're just worried about getting hit or hitting. Yeah. And they're not focusing on these details. So I get a lot of players that get to me at the high school level and they don't know what they're doing.
What is the biggest problem with college football and how to fix it right now? How do we do that? We have a real issue with college football. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I talk about college football and the cultural aspect of the book, and my pet peeve with college football, it's one of my favorite things to watch, by the way. I love college football. But my pet peeve with it is that we're turning out too many kids without a proper education. And I know there's been the pay-for-play solution, and the exploitation of athletes has been talked about. In fact, Time magazine ran a front cover article on this very subject about 1.5 years ago. In my opinion, I don't think we're giving the players enough time to get a proper education. And with another 2 years of academic scholarship, and we were already moving in that direction, now they're starting to guarantee the scholarships, and they're going from 4 to 5 if they're redshirted. I think we should guarantee 6 years worth of scholarship, of which 2 of those could be used exclusively for
study. That's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah, well, I hope they do that. I mean, we all know that
money's
college
a factor,
football
for sure.
players are exploited, and I remember a linebacker years ago for Ohio State, Andy Katzenmoyer. I don't know if you remember Andy Katzenmoyer, but he was a big-time linebacker for Ohio State. Later played for the Patriots. He had a short NFL career, and both of his parents were educators. They were both high school teachers. And Katzenmoyer claimed that they should have a major that's called football. So, part of practice is classroom,
right?
And
it's rather than physical education degree.
Yeah, I mean,
because
rather
they
than
have
being,
that right
you know,
now.
rather than having having to be in a classroom for other things, that 2 hours that you spend every day on the field should be classroom study. Like, if you go every day, like you know, your attendance is good. You know, it's that kind of stuff.
Right, well, they're not going to miss many, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. Hey, is that the Dallas Cowboy hat? Is that,
No,
is
that
what
would
is
be a
D?
Duke Blue Devil hat.
Duke Blue Devil. Okay. So both of these guys are Dukies.
Yes.
Right.
we are.
You
I got my MBA
you got
at
your
Duke
MBA
University
at Duke,
as well.
and
Same.
thing. MBA at Duke. Is that how you guys met in Duke?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. We got a couple Dukies. We had a great author here. Another great show by
Thank you,
Tallarino,
guys.
Tuzzolino,
All
right?
right, guys. Great
All right.
show.
It
It was a
We'll
lot
see
of
you
fun.
next week.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.